Well, good evening, everybody. We're going to go ahead and get started. It's about 6:02. So, again, this meeting is being recorded and it will be furnished to everybody upon request. So, please feel free to direct that request to our IR, our investor relations email address, which will be shared to at the end of the meeting so that you will be able to do that. But just want to welcome everybody. My name is David Myers, the CFO for Elevare Technologies. This is our first annual shareholder meeting. We're all here to walk through and recap of what transpired in our first year of operations, and we're excited what's coming ahead and what's down the road. So without further ado, I'm going to turn it over to Steve Beedman, our chairman and CEO, who will be kind of emceeing this entire meeting from there on, and we'll touch points at every given juncture. So Steve.
Thank you, David, very much. And again, welcome everyone to this, which we believe will be the first of many shareholder meetings. We're obviously excited about what we're up to here. It is far and away the biggest thing I've ever done. And I think as you see tonight, you'll get a sense that all of us have that kind of energy and enthusiasm behind what we're doing. We've put together a brief program for you. We're going to hear from Chad Tongo, our President and Chief Operating Officer, on the state of our technology. We'll hear from Frank Parisi, our Chief Revenue Officer, on the channels that we're developing for distribution of that technology. And then David's going to come back on a little later and talk about the financial controls that we've done, which we think are critically important. But right here, as you look at this first page, it is easy to see it. And what we're trying to get across to the world is that we are developing an entirely new way for business to conduct business itself. There are 37 million independent businesses in the United States, and we believe the Eleverse is useful for every one of them to create new levels of connectivity, like a social media connection, new levels of productivity and training and education, new levels of service for customer service departments, and of course, more sales coming through a more effective and efficient sales channel. So we see business uses all over this. And I think it's important to note, we have heard a lot of media, and all of you have heard the stuff about Meta and how they blew up in their offering of a metaverse. We think they blew up for two reasons. They had neither form nor function. When you look at the form of Meta, they were dragons and anything you wanted to be. Well, normal people aren't going to adopt that type of thing. The normal business community wants gravity to actually be a rule within the metaverse. It wants humanoids to be the caricatures in the metaverse. They don't need dragons and flying spaceships. So we think the form of Meta was wrong. And from a function standpoint, we think they just didn't have it. The function idea of our Eleverse is to create digital office twins for the real world. So your physical and virtual worlds come together. And that business model of the software is what we think gives us enormous relevant differentiation. So David, there's one thing I want to mention, by the way, too. We hear a lot today about green solutions, and this comes out at the bottom. We are absolutely the green solution for business. There is no digital or no carbon footprint to the digital model that we have. So when it comes to training and not flying people in for training conferences or education, we have an absolutely green solution. So we're not going to shy away from that at all. But David, if you'd give me the next slide, we'll move a little bit. As I said, we're going to have four things, really, this little talk I want to give you. Then we're going to talk about technology. We're going to talk about our distribution opportunities and our financial controls. If we look at the market, and I've been in finance and economics most of my life, and the first rule of investing is to buy into a rising tide. I've said this before in videos that I've done, but if you study Jeff Bezos, and it's kind of an interesting story, a hedge fund called D.E. Shaw in New York. Now, if you know the hedge fund world, D.E. Shaw was the most respected shop, absolutely the best and the brightest. When Jeff Bezos one time went to David Shaw and said, David, I'm quitting to start my own company called Cadabra. David Shaw took him out and said, what kind of a fool are you? I pay you more money than anyone else. You have more opportunity to get rich. And Bezos looked at him and said, I see this thing called the World Wide Web, and it's growing at 2,100% a year. I want to be part of that. So he then started Cadabra, which for the first year or two bombed because of the name, and then they renamed it Amazon, and the rest is history. But the point with that is to buy into rising tides. It is estimated by the best research we can find at Grandview, McKinsey, or others, that the metaverse space is going to grow at 23 or more percent a year on a compounded annual growth rate for the next 10 years. The top end of it ranges anywhere from 100 million for just digital officing up to the impact on the economy of 2 billion, or according to trillion, according to Citi, 13 trillion. This is a massive change and transformation in the way business is done. We believe it's early, but it's not too early. It's adaptable. So we are absolutely on fire about getting this technology into the hands of the business people and letting them migrate into the digital world. We know it's the right time. We know it's the right space. We have the right tech and we have the right people. And speaking of people for a moment, we're very pleased to have a board of directors that is really absolutely first rate. I sit on the board as its chairman, and I'm joined there by Chad Tongo, our president and chief operating officer. He'll give you a little background of himself when he starts, but he's got a terrific PE background. Frank Parisi, who's our director of revenues, also sits on the board, and he's got a terrific background in enterprise selling of advanced technologies. We have two outside directors, Michael Anaya, who is a former FBI official and was involved in cybersecurity there. So when you look at the work that we're doing, the importance of cybersecurity is enormous. And so Michael's background there will be terrific. And then finally, Todd Davis joins us. He was formerly a Denver Bronco, I think it is. And so he's got a great athletic background. But more than that, he's a terrific businessman. He's built a successful enterprise out in Colorado. And we think he can bring some of those fundamental business principles to Elevare. David Myers, who you hears about, isn't formally on the board, but he is the closest thing to an advisor as we have. So we're pleased to have him join us in our meetings and keep track of everything going on around here. So with that, a little bit, my enthusiasm could go for all night, but I don't want to keep you here that long. I want to go ahead and turn it over to Chad Tongo and have Chad give you an update on our technology.
Thank you, Steve. Appreciate it. And it's a pleasure to join everyone on this call this evening. A brief overview of where we're at with our technology from our inception back in April of 2022. We've been able to develop a proprietary tech that enables us to provide virtual work solutions to businesses across the country. Currently, our tech is roughly about 80% complete. And our goal is to get this across the finish line within the next 2 to 3 months at most. What we've done thus far is put together a methodical and sustainable plan in how we're going to be rolling this tech out from a go-to-market basis. We've identified 3 phases with regards to how our go-to-market is going to play. The first phase entails what we call our virtual offices solution, essentially providing, as what Steve alluded to earlier, just moments ago, basically office solutions, digital twin availability of virtual spaces, if you will. And that is going to be rolling out within the next 90 days, pending or contingent upon funding. I'm pleased to also share that we have contracted, or began rather, conversations with our team out of London with what we call LandVault Technologies. LandVault is a premier, a veteran, and an experienced metaverse builder. As a matter of fact, they have built roughly around over 100 million square feet of metaverse space over the last few years. They've been used by Heineken, Amazon, MasterCard, and many others within the enterprise level realm in creating their own respective metaverse spaces across all the different platforms, from Decentraland to Sandbox, so on and so forth. So we've began conversations with them, and they're prepared to jump on board and lead our development initiative with regards to the metaverse asset. In addition to that, we are also going to back that up, their efforts, with our internal team to handle all the back-end development. And that is going to be led by our Chief Technology Officer, Alex Ratkovich. Both firms and both initiatives would allow us to integrate what we call a dual technological DevOps. We call it DevOps, which will allow us to expedite our technology development to be able to go to market this summer. That being said, our phase 2 will entail an integration of our office matrix. Think of LinkedIn, and that would allow our users to be able to access one another directly from the metaverse space. This is a one-of-a-kind feature that Metaverse for Business approach have yet to see. This is something that we believe would be a game changer in the professional realm. So that is going to be implemented and going to market by Q1 of next year. And then the last phase would be phase 3, and that is based on what the success rate is, obviously, of our phase 2, but we are planning on going into virtual commerce. In the virtual commerce build, we're anticipating and implementing, going to market with that come Q3 of 2024 calendar year. And that being said, that should complete our overall technological approach and market positioning with regards to Metaverse for Business. Virtual commerce in itself is going to be a totally different market stream, if you will, or revenue stream. But we believe that it is going to fit right in our ecosystem, given the amount of population we're projecting on bringing on board, pending obviously the successful raise that we're currently ongoing through Regulation CF and starting a Regulation D in conjunction with that, as well as the approach that Frank Sinitri or Parisi is going to be talking about from a channel partnership perspective. So that is essentially what our approach is from a technology perspective. We've got 3 phases that we're looking to undertake here within the next year and a half. And with that, I give it back to Steve. Thanks, Steve.
I think it's important to note that what Chad's building is a completely scalable enterprise level software program. We don't have the kind of limits that the others do. We have built something here that is genuinely unique because you can scale it to hundreds of thousands of businesses, millions of private offices, and that will give us, in again, going back to Chad's thing, in connectivity and that social networking type of space will be unmatched. So we're going to talk, by the way, a little bit about the CF round when we go down to our financial talk, and we'll discuss some of those things. So thanks, Chad, for bringing that up. But let me move on to Frank Parisi, our Director of Revenues. We can build the best software in the world, but if we don't have anybody to sell it for us, it's going to sit on the shelf. So Frank, that burden goes to you.
No, of course. That's been my entire career. I greatly appreciate it, Steve. And Chad, thanks for all that detail you gave us there. That was really something. So I've been involved with several meetings already, right? So even though we're not fully selling the product yet, we do have the product out there. People have bought the product, but we're talking about, the large enterprise folks that we're talking to. I've had meetings with Steve and a potential customer. I've had meetings with Chad, also with Alex, and also, of course, with David, where we've all been on and got to hear some of the excitement. So some of the excitement, and just one of the quotes that I love to give is from a president of a 350,000 member group that's out there throughout the entire United States. That's 350,000 members. I have to say that twice, right? So he sees this as the future in business, right? The future of business is utilizing the Eleverse. That's what I like to call it, right? So the Eleverse is out there, and he sees this as being something we've got to do to make his business even more successful in the future. So we love hearing those kind of things. Other CEOs that we've talked to, the same type of thing as well. They can't wait to get their hands on it, to get away from certain other products that are out there, to make it easier, make it more fun, actually, for communications with their own organizations. So what we've done is we tried to figure out the best way to make this work. So we're looking at healthcare associations. We're looking at chambers of commerce that are out there, profit, for-profit, nonprofit, not-for-profit organizations. And really the best way to get this thing done is channel, right? I've done this before with a large publicly traded company. It's extremely successful, and it's going to be very successful here. And they like the way we're describing the channel process, right? So it's very simple with the channel, where you have educate, train, and then build that relationship ongoing with the folks that will be out there utilizing your product and also really selling it for you as the channel grows. It's really something that we're excited about, really something that we're looking forward to, plus the individuals that are utilizing it. And they're telling 2 friends about it and then telling 2 other friends about it and so on and so on. It really has a ground roots effort to make this thing absolutely fantastic. And we're extremely excited about it. So with all that, I don't need to tell everybody on this call how it works, but if I could help in any other way, please don't hesitate to reach out to me. I'd be glad to discuss how this whole thing called the Eleverse works. Thank you, Steve.
Thanks, Frank. You can reach him at frank@elevaretech.io, by the way. One of the things that Frank didn't have a chance to mention is we actually have letters of intent signed by 2 of our major channel partners already. And when you look at the scale, let's talk about scale for a minute, because in our pro formas that we internally do, we're looking at within 3 years having maybe 30,000 business customers. Well, that's a 30,000 out of a universe that we currently have in the process of over 1 million business customers all in. So we're not exactly, forecasting our own growth on huge percentages of the market. We think it's extraordinarily reasonable, and that's what keeps us going. Again, this larger network with 350,000 independent businesses who said, this is the future, we need it. That's the kind of response we need. So Frank, thank you very much. David, I'm going to go ahead now and turn it over to you, but I want to make a couple of just housekeeping comments, if you don't mind.
Yeah,
we did note that in the annual report, a couple of people brought up that it was a little confusing when I talked about the delays that we had incurred. When I refer to the CF offering come out in Q1 of 24, that's a fiscal year, not a calendar year. Our fiscal year ends March 31st. So we are in the first quarter of our next fiscal year right now. So that, I hope, clears that up if anybody had that question. And in terms of the physical stock certificates that we did say were included, we originally were going to send that information out U.S. Postal. We didn't get a chance. So I have the certificates printed. We will get those to you in short order. But let me introduce David Myers to you next. David is our CFO. He's a former banker. And in any business, you need somebody who really does put controls on where the money comes and goes. And we're pleased to have David in that role.
Yeah, thank you, Stephen. Again, just so glad that everybody who made it here with us today. We're so happy that you're on. And we just want to walk through the financials. And for this past fiscal year, as Steve mentioned, it is a 3/31 year end for the company here. And so just want to touch on some of the highlights that were that hopefully you had a chance to read throughout the day. And if you haven't, again, please go back to your email box. That information is attached. It has our audit that was required by us to perform per the SEC, that we had an audit for our first fiscal year end. And if you haven't read, like I said, please go back and take a look. And if you have any questions, you can please feel free to send them to me, david@elevaretech.io, and I'll be happy to walk through any of those questions you might have. But just to kind of scratch the surface here without getting too deep into the minutia of the numbers here, without trying to bore you. But really, as you can tell, it's not the prettiest looking balance sheet in P&L as you would probably find it anywhere else. But nonetheless, this is a startup entity. It was formed 12 months prior and is growing through those growing pains, as you will see. That's pretty much outlined in every juncture of this balance sheet in P&L. More importantly, it's what we want to focus on here is our 2 main components in terms of our liabilities, things that we'll want to bring to everyone's attention. What, as you can see in our leverage profile, is our debt vehicle and our long-term assets. That money was an internal debt vehicle that was lent from another entity to help with the capital raising to get this our vehicle up and running. And as you can see there, that's what makes up a large part of our balance sheet in that regard, at 1.545 million there. And then also you can see on top there in our short-term liabilities, our accounts payable at 614,000. And a large part of that is associated with our asset, our tech build, and the components and our infrastructure that was, with those costs associated with that. So those are the 2 main components I wanted to point out on the balance sheet, because they are glaring, and I just want to make sure that everyone is aware and rest assured that we are working tirelessly to offset those 2 components on our balance sheet, to clean it up, get that money cleared off on the books in terms of our debt and our accounts payable, and to get this balance sheet on the right side of things. So with that being said, we're going to just go down and talk about the P&L here pretty quickly. Again, we're in the coming on into Elevare in January of this year, taking on the controls and the processes that were, their lack of was there was a certain amount of expenditures that were taking place throughout the year that were facilitating in different areas that were not unnecessary, but at the path that the company was on in the current direction that it's taking place now was quite different. And so there was expenditures that were where money was being allocated to suffice those those needs of the company at that time. So since then, the company has identified the no longer the need for those expenditures that are outlined in the P&L. We'll just go over a couple of them really quickly here. Total advertising marketing expense is no longer going to be at the number that you see there inflated at the 228,000 marker, as well as our office expense, which included rent and overhead, has become completely digitalized and virtualized in our operations. So the need for that physical space and all the things that are intertwined with that is no longer going forward. So those numbers will drastically increase. And of course, payroll and overhead. Again, staffing was something that we felt that needed to be trimmed up in order to be more efficient and lean as we go forward and move into the direction that we are pursuing day in and day out. And so all these numbers have been trimmed back and dialed in more or less. And so our overhead expenses as well as our capital expenditures are going to be on a go forward basis. As we move forward into this next fiscal year, will be very much leaner, and you'll see that there at the bottom line, which will, again, at this point at the year end, didn't look that great, but again, we're always pivoting, we're moving, always trying to get into the right direction for the best return for everybody involved. So, and with that, we're in a process, and I'll just touch on a little bit, Steve. I know you have, you're going to opine on that here quickly, but just want to let everybody know we are working through our capital raise to get more funds in at a more friendlier terms, and also as an equity raise versus our, the current initial plan of attack, which was a debt vehicle. And so again, getting things right sized on our balance sheet is going to be pivotal going forward, and that's what we're working towards. And so we have these raises in place, as well as some low hanging fruit that we're working on day in and day out. So that's enough out of me. I know I don't want to bore anybody furthermore with my numbers talk, but that's all I have for you guys today.
Thank you, David. And again, I welcome everyone to read through the annual report, the audited financials. And if you have questions, you can go to David directly or investor relations, ir@elevaretech.io. As we kind of get down toward the end of this presentation, I do want to talk about our Regulation CF offering. We did this because it opens up our stock to non-accredited investors. The CF offering was created by the government about 6 years ago, and it really is a wonderful way for a company like us with minimal expense to offer our stock to non-accredited investors. And that's really what it's for. We're not getting it out the block as fast as we would have liked. We're still pushing. We just today, a friend of mine introduced some more doctors who are going to come in. But the point is, the CF is one component. We are launching simultaneous with it a Regulation D offering, which is specifically geared for institutional investors. They can run concurrently, but we can't breach the $5 million mark. So we have a $5 million hard cap. With that said, the critical nature of the fundraising is coming down to institutional relationships. We just signed an agreement with a brokerage group out of Florida, and we are very excited about that because they specialize in Reg D offerings. We think they'll be instrumental in getting this first 5 million done. We also have a group out of Singapore, believe it or not, who's approached us, and they've issued a memorandum of understanding to give us 5 million. They want to buy 10% of the company. So we have probably half a dozen institutional people right now who are in the hop that we're talking to. I would welcome everyone here to share the CF offering at investinelevare.com. That is something, again, everyone can come into. We have a $500 minimum, so it's not a heavy lift, and you get credit card miles. So that's something you can do to have some fun with your friends. We look forward to all of you participating in that. And then again, we're going to knock the big numbers down with the institutional people. But we're excited about it. We want to, again, thank you for joining us, and we welcome you to write us at ir@elevaretech.io. Any questions you have anytime. We stand here for you, and we represent all of our shareholders on a daily basis as we work to achieve our goals. So we do have these objectives right now of get the capital in, get the tech done, and get distribution done. And we think that the future is very bright for our stock price and for the overall market value of the company. So I appreciate everyone joining us. Michael, you're down on the video. I think, David, can they see Michael?
Yes. They should be able to
If
see.
they can, we have an opportunity. Michael, would you like to say something? We've and Michael and Todd both have joined us there on video. We have a few minutes left if you'd like to say hello to our shareholders.
Nothing really. Just thanks for inviting me. Happy to be here. Just let me know any questions you guys have and what you might need.
Again, Michael was with the FBI, so be careful.
Hello, everyone.
And Todd, welcome.
Yes, thank you for having me. I'm Todd Davis, former Denver Bronco. Now I own a real estate development firm here in Colorado, and I'm glad to be a part of the team, and I'm looking forward to the growth here.
Thank you very much. So that's our board of directors that you kind of see up top. We're excited as could be about it. We think we have a great board, a great management team, a great market to play into, a good technology, a good position. So we're excited on your behalf, and for those who are in all the stakeholders. We continue to work hard for everybody's benefit. So thank you all very much for joining. And again, ir@elevaretech.io with any questions, or investinelevare.com if you want to pick up some of those available CF shares. David, thank you for setting this up.
Of course, thank you, everybody. And you have a wonderful rest of your day and a wonderful rest of your week.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.